And when there are no more dragons to slay, how will you make a living, knight? Shut up!
Welcome back to DM of Many Faces, where everyone has a seat at the table. My name is Josh. Dungeons and Dragons. I love dragons. You love dragons, I assume. Everybody loves dragons.
Are those dragons?
At least, we like the idea of dragons. The execution of running a dragon is going to have a lot of variance, however.
What? Everyone should be free to do what they want.
What makes for a compelling dragon combat? I'm not sure I know, but what I do know is how I would run one. If to thine own self be true, that makes the best dragon your dragon. Or my dragon. Whatever. Before I let this drag on anymore, let's get into today's topic, how I ran an ancient black dragon against a 10th level party.
Pathetic. Let me show you real power.
Black dragons have seen a surge in popularity in recent years. We have Umbrasyl from Critical Role's Legend of Vox Machina. We have Rakor from the Honor Among Thieves movie with this hilarious Nerf toy tie-in. It's funny because they can't make the dragon toy black because it would look like a real gun. Teal Nerf guns aside, black dragons have the coolest design of any of the chromatic dragons, in my opinion. Couple that with acid breath and a reputation for villainy, you have an amazing monster.
The Supreme Black Skull Dragon!
And apparently they're also called Skull Dragons, which is a cool name. The party was in a rough spot. They had just been routed from their homes by the local nobility. One of the characters had just learned that they were a member of this same nobility, and the party was venturing towards their ancestral home so that they could reclaim it. As the noble players' amnesia gradually faded away, they recalled distant but happy memories of riding through the local village with their father, seeing the smiling faces of the peasants working the land, the sun shining. But now it's all wrong. The fields are submerged in a couple of feet of water. There's dark, twisting brambles and stinging insects and giant crocodiles sliding through the muck. And that very night they receive a vision of a large black stone sitting atop a rook, like a chess piece. Vines twisting around it. The player's unsure if this is a portent, a warning. It's brutal, demoralizing, but the party overcome. They climb the walls, sneak past the lizard folk, and gain entry into the main keep. This is a game where we used Roll20, and at this point, I busted out the battle map. The party are shocked to see just how rough a shape the castle's in. Definitely a fixer-upper, and it's mere moments before the party is interrupted. Who goes there? Uh-oh, it's Vox Machina's favorite enemy, an old man.
You mere peasants must be here to pay me tribute.
And what does Baron von Ruthless do?
He starts
monologuing.
So they light the old man on fire nearly instantly, and we see this elderly black dragonborn writhing in pain. I don't know if you know any old people, but if you do, you would know that if they are lit on fire, typically they die. However, this old man seems to enjoy it. He is cackling, just carrying on, having the best time. He is also growing at a rapid pace, and wings burst from his back. The party have precisely the amount of time to pick their jaws up off the floor before...
I made a huge tiny mistake.
So here we are, initiative. Round 1 goes by pretty quickly. Some lizard folk burst in and are slaughtered. A giant crocodile chases the wizard into a adjoining room, and the dragon begins wreaking havoc. Before I get any deeper into the discussion of how to run a dragon in combat, I think rule number 1, use your breath weapon. Use it immediately, use it when you can. And I'm not talking about mechanical viability here, that it's the most powerful weapon. It's the coolest thing they do. Players are going to expect you to use it. It's going to feel iconic and epic when that breath weapon goes off. Use it as often as you can. Don't be shy. Burn and fry. Or melt in this case, because it's a black dragon. Before we get into round 2, let's talk about lair actions.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my underground lair.
It's common knowledge that the more powerful D&D monsters, like dragons, both seek out and can terraform the world around them to fit their needs.
There's nothing. I think the lore's off. Hey, what if dragons like nice hotels?
And the mechanical expression of this is lair actions. You'll find these just off to the side of any legendary creature's stat block that resides in a lair. Essentially, when initiative is rolled and the DM is going down the turn order, the lair has its own initiative at 20. In the case of a black dragon's lair, they give you 3 options. You can flood the room, fill it with insects, or with magical darkness. Essentially, you pick one of these options each turn, and you can't use the same one twice in a row. And I think this is perfectly fine. I have just developed a way of running it a bit differently. The first initiative count 20 I run, I have all the minions spawn in, essentially, and take their starting positions. That's their entire turn, and the party has a chance to quickly mop them up and feel like they're chipping away at the enemy side. After that, I retire the minion spawning option for the lair, and then I switch in my own system. I design 8 options unique to that creature, and then I assign them each a number, and at initiative count 20, I have one of the players roll. I usually have a player who's really far down on initiative, or their character is incapacitated, or they're not having a good time and they just need something to do. They're the one I usually pick for the die roll. This keeps the players involved, and the mechanic of rolling for it adds chaos and a dynamic component to every combat. Even the dungeon master doesn't know what's going to happen next. Let's do a deep dive into the Black Dragon stat block. We see it as a high armor class,
A 19.
19 misses.
really decent HP, some good mobility. The only gap in its saving throws that I can see would be intelligence saving throws, but it does have the legendary resistance to help with that. I would also tack on immunity to Charm and Frighten to make the encounter a bit more challenging. The immunity to acid damage probably won't help too much. And it also has Frightful Presence to give creatures who fail disadvantage to hit that 22 armor class.
Delicious cattle. Raishan enjoys the taste of fear.
Switching over to the offensive side, we see the dragon can do about 50 points of damage if it just focus fires on one opponent. However, the real damage is with the breath weapon. As long as you're lining up 2 people in that acid breath, it's going to deal more damage than an entire round of multi-attack, even if both of them fail. Remembering what type of breath weapon your dragon has is going to help you design the layout of their lair. In my case, I kept it a pretty open playing field. If it were more of a cone shaped, I might put pillars there for the party to duck behind. But when it comes to the line-shaped breath weapons, I want it as easy as possible to line up at least 2 people. And finally, we have legendary actions, which the dragon can use at the end of a different creature's turn. We see the dragon can use a perception check, can make a tail swipe, or it can beat its wings to do an AoE effect and fly a little bit. Again, there's nothing wrong with these, I just like to add in more options like a grapple, a cantrip, or maybe a spell. I encourage you to customize it to your own needs. Maybe your dragon is a spellcaster and they can do higher level spells by using 2 legendary actions, for example. I would recommend bumping the dragon's HP or giving it more legendary resistances when you're facing a party that uses optimized builds, that there's more than just 4 adventurers, or if they're up in the higher levels, or any combination of the 3 really. You might want to give it a few tricks to get out of spells as well, like a teleport. Round 2, Dragon's turn. The party breathes a sigh of relief as the die rolls a 3 and the breath weapon does not recharge. So instead I have the dragon hopping around the battlefield, breaking up its multi-attack, and then peppering in some legendary action tail swipes. I divide every dragon combat into 2 phases. Phase 1 is when it's above half HP, Phase 2 is the opposite. When the dragon is healthy, it's going to be gloating, it's going to be vindictive, it's going to take its time or play with its food, especially a black dragon. The next 2 rounds were very interesting because the dragon did get its breath weapon back, but the party was also dealing a ton of damage to it. A very timely critical hit Divine Smite from our paladin officially knocked the dragon far below half health. At that point, we officially enter Phase 2. A dragon that is below half health is looking at 2 things. 1, how quickly can it leave if it needs to? And 2, who can it quickly dispatch permanently before it's forced to flee? Lucky enough for the dragon, Magical Darkness sprouted right where the paladin was standing, thanks to the lair action. The dragon managed to drop several members of the party, thanks to the advantage brought on by the Magical Darkness, and then it slipped out through the front of the castle. That could be a little bit anticlimactic for some, I can respect that, but sometimes a villain fleeing to fight another day is even scarier because now they know what the party is capable of. If there's ever a time where the party could not handle another encounter in a day, that's the time the dragon's going to show back up. In this particular instance, the dragon was at I want to say 30 HP, one more round would have killed it. So it made sense for it to flee, and then later on, around level 15, it showed back up. It was completely homebrewed and a lot more challenging of an encounter, but it was personal at that point because the party had fought it before. My hope is that you can use my example here to form a sort of template. Step 1 was to weave the dragon into the story. I made it personal by having it layer in the fallen home of a party member. Step 2 was to build up to the encounter itself by incorporating themes of the dragon into the terrain as the party made their way towards the castle, foreshadowing the dragon's existence in a dream, this black stone on top of a rook, being this dragon perched upon the castle. Steps 3 and 4 were to introduce the dragon and surprise the party. Having a dragon be polymorphed at the start of the encounter is a good way to get the drop on your players. And finally, by doing my homework, reading the stat block, and making certain adjustments for my table, I was able to make an encounter that was pretty balanced. 1 dragon versus a party of 6 high-level players and NPCs that all were decked out with magic items and somewhat optimized builds. The fight ending with the dragon on death's door and a few of the party actually making death saving throws. I believe one actually did die and was quickly revivified with the diamond found in the dragon's treasure hoard. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something or were entertained, or ideally both. Have you faced an ancient dragon in D&D, or have had the pleasure of throwing one at your players? I know a lot of games don't get above level 11, so best of luck if you have.